Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Strong Opinion Hibs podcast. Just me tonight, just Charlie. But I'm delighted to be joined by voice of Hibs TV commentary, Cliff Pike. Cliff, how are you doing, mate?
I'm well, Charlie. Thanks for having me. I've scared the other two lads off, obviously, but it's nice. It's nice to be here.
Good, mate. Aye, Calvin and Jack are otherwise engaged, so you're stuck with me. So, Cliff, what we like to do when we get a guest on is we like to have some quick fire questions just to get to know them and just for the listeners' sake as well. So, I've got a few of them. So, the first question for you, Cliff, is who got you into Hibs?
My dad. My dad came down from a wee village in the north of Scotland called Helmsdale in 1961, and he was living in a wee flat down in Newhaven. Of a Saturday lunchtime, he used to head up to his uncle's house at Dalgetty Avenue, just across from Meadowbank Stadium. He used to have his lunch there, and then him and his uncle would toddle off round to Easter Road to either watch the first team if they were playing there or the reserve team if they were playing there. So he got into Hibs, obviously a Highland lad, no affiliations with Hibs whatsoever. He kind of was indoctrinated into them by his uncle. And when I came along, it was only natural that the same thing was going to happen to me. So I blame my dad for the many years of misery that I've suffered as a Hibs supporter. But obviously, there's been some cracking times as well, so we wouldn't have had it any other way.
And do you remember what your first game being a Hibs fan was?
I do, yes. We played Falkirk at Easter Road. I think we remember we beat them 6-0. I managed to get a programme from that game not too long ago. Arthur Duncan scored the hat-trick in that game. I didn't really know very much about football at the time. I was just a knee-high to a sprat. I remember, I think it was Alex Cropley got tackled in the centre circle and I was screaming for a penalty, so I had no idea what the rules of the game were or anything like that. My dad had to explain that all to me. But one thing I do remember quite vividly about it was Joe Baker. He was in his second spell with Hibs at the time, and Joe wore a pair of white boots. And I remember saying to my dad, "Dad, why is that man wearing white boots?" It was obviously very, very unusual back in the early 1970s. It was all just ordinary black football boots you wore, But my dad said to me, "Son, that's Joe Baker. He can wear any colour of boots he likes." Obviously, you get a bit older, you read up on Joe Baker and who he was, and yeah, he could have worn any colour of boots he liked, right enough.
Aye, that's fair. And was Joe Baker your favourite player growing up?
No, I didn't really see very much of Joe. Obviously, for me, you're never going to meet Sir Patrick of Stanton. Pat, absolutely fantastic football player. Everything you want in the midfield player, terrific engine, pass the ball, shoot, score goals, great header of a ball, great tackler, and a great leader. Not the noisiest guy ever, but Pat led by example. And I've been lucky enough in the role that I have now to have met Pat on many occasions, and I consider him a friend. And he really was just everything I wanted a football player to be. If I could have been a quarter of the player that Pat Stanton was, I'd have been twice as good as I was. But an absolute genius on the football pitch.
Aye, definitely. And who's been your favourite opposition player you've seen at Easter Road?
Ooh, that's a good question. Put me on the spot with that one. Again, it probably goes back to the point in time where I was kind of just starting to watch football. There's a guy played for Celtic by the name of George Connolly. And George was, again, a kind of similar player to Pat Stanton. George, unfortunately, had problems off the pitch. I don't really know what the issues were with him, but on a football pitch, he was an absolute genius of a player. And for me, he was probably part of the reason that Jock Stein's Celtic team, won 9 in a row, and Hibs basically played second fiddle to them for a lot of that. Connolly was the guy that made them tick, and obviously they also had Kenny Dalglish in that side as well, and he was another terrific player. Just to say that you saw guys like that actually play in the flesh. We all know what Kenny Dalglish went on to do down at Liverpool and what he did with Scotland as well, and to see you saw guys like that play. So, probably the two of them, that Celtic team were such a good team. And obviously, if it wasn't for how good they were and how good a manager Jock Stein was, Hibs would have won league titles and won cups in the 1970s.
Yep.
You know, we won the 1972 League Cup, a couple of Driver Cups, and it was scant reward. But we were up against probably one of the best sides that Scottish football's ever seen at the time. So, yeah, George Connolly was a great player. Kenny Dalglish was a great player. Brilliant to have seen both of them.
Do you have one in probably recent memory that stands out as well?
It's quite a funny one because I was a goalkeeper of no repute during my own football career, and obviously Andy Gorham was a huge hero of mine, and when he left for Rangers, it kind of almost broke my heart at the time. But to see Andy Gorham playing for Hibs was brilliant, but to see him come back and play against him as well, you know, if you lay aside the team that he was playing for, he was just an absolutely superb goalkeeper, and you know, he broke our hearts on more than one occasion as a Rangers goalkeeper. However, he did also contribute to us winning the 1991 League Cup when he punched the ball straight to Mickey Weir, who played it in and put it straight on Keith Wright's head. So, you know, but Andy Gorham would have been the guy that I liked watching. And I was glad he didn't go back down south because it still enabled us to see him playing live in the flesh at Easter Road and at Ibrox. So.
And obviously a sad state of affairs that he finds himself in just now, and I can imagine that's
very much so,
that's maybe a bit more real that you've seen him playing now for both sides of the divide.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, as I say, you know, I mean, for me, obviously saw goalkeepers like Alan Rough as well, you know, Jim Leighton, who were both fantastic goalkeepers, and to say Andy Gorham was better than them shows how good a goalkeeper Andy Gorham actually was. You know, he wasn't the tallest guy in the world. He was about 5'11", Andy. But, you know, he made up for it. You know, the way he punched the ball was incredible. I remember him actually in a game against Dundee United at Easter Road. You know, some of the slightly older viewers and listeners will probably remember it. A ball got played into the box and Andy came and punched it. And he punched it literally to about the edge of the centre circle, where Billy McKinlay from Dundee United trapped it and took it, with just almost like trapped it and hit it in one go, straight back over Andy's head into the back of the net. You know, and it was just where you thought, unbelievable. You know, the punch was so good that, you know, Billy McKinlay's touch was just incredible. He just launched it straight over Andy's head into the back of the net. But he made up for his lack of height, you know, by punching the ball well, shot stopping wise, unbelievable, athletic, brave. You know, I mean, people remember games he played against Hearts where he literally won the game for us single-handed. And like guys like Alan Rough and Jim Leighton, he was worth a dozen or more points in the season to you, just with some of the saves they made, probably like Craig Gordon was for Hearts last season. You know, a good goalkeeper that can win you a dozen points, you know, is a huge bonus. So hopefully we've got one for next season.
That's the hope. And my last sort of quick fire one, Cliff, is what's been your favourite away game that you've been to following Hibs?
My favourite away game following Hibs would probably be a toss-up between two. We were fortunate enough to do the commentary from the game against Dnipro, which was bizarre in itself because obviously the old-style Russian-type stadium. They put us in a brick building at the sort of side part of the ground where there was no electricity, and we had to actually run an extension cable up about 4 flights of stairs to get power, to sort of power all the kit. And we were actually sitting out on a balcony that had a wee sort of metal fence, and, you know, all the fans were below us, and the atmosphere in the ground that night was terrific. Probably just surpassed by the game against Brøndby in Denmark. The Hibs support that night were just unbelievable. I mean, they'd been unbelievable in the town itself for a day or two beforehand, just the atmosphere that was building up. And, you know, typical Scottish fans abroad, you know, just there to enjoy themselves, party. If you win, great. If you don't, you've had a great time anyway. The locals loved them, and the noise they made in the stadium that night was unbelievable. And, you know, to win the game 1-0 as a championship side, as Hibs were at that time, take it to penalty kicks, and you know, I still remember John McGinn taking the first penalty, and John was absolutely blowing out his backside at the penalty shootout. You know, he covered every blade of grass 1,000 times on that pitch, and he tried to place his penalty. And I'm sure if you asked him again, he would put his laces through it and just try and bang it as hard as he could. But he missed it, everybody else scored theirs, and we went out 5-4 on penalties. But an absolutely brilliant night, just a brilliant trip.
Aye, definitely. So, Cliff, we'll move sort of into your commentary career now. So, did you always want to be a commentator?
No, I had no ambitions to be involved in commentary or media or anything whatsoever. It kind of came about by accident. I was working on the website Hibs.net at the time.
Oh.
The guy that ran it, a guy called Stuart Crowther, had come up with some idea of doing a sort of internet radio show on a Saturday morning. And he put a wee message on the website about it, sort of saying, does anybody want to get involved in this? And I thought to myself, Saturday morning, what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be sitting watching Soccer AM on Sky. My wife would take my daughter to Highland dancing lessons on a Saturday morning. I'd be sitting watching Soccer AM, Tim Lovejoy and Helen Chamberlain on the telly and that. I thought, let's give this a bash for a wee bit of fun, Is it just a bit of a laugh, And myself and a guy called Andrew Herron went along. We did the first show that we did from Stuart Crowther's spare bedroom in his house at Craighour, and it was absolutely dreadful. I mean, honestly, it was. You kind of thought to yourself, if this is what it's going to be like, we're just, I mean, I look at you guys doing the podcasts and everything nowadays, and they're all so professional compared to the first one that we did. It was just absolutely brutal. I remember Stuart playing some records that Andrew and I had never heard of. Probably most of the listeners had never heard of either. I don't know if it was his ploy so that listen to this or go and grab yourself a cup of tea or a bacon roll or something like that while this is playing. But we stuck at it. And, I like to think that with practice, like everything else, we got a little bit better. And we got to the stage where Colin McNeil, who was the club's then communications director, heard about it. And he contacted Stuart and asked if he could come on, just to answer some questions from the listeners. So, Colin came in. By this time, we'd moved to a little shed. We called it the Shack in Stuart's back garden. He'd moved house down to Pilton by then. And he had this shed set up as a radio studio. Colin came in. People were sort of texting in or typing in questions on the chat page and what have you. He was answering them. Thought it was absolutely brilliant. And a week or so later, I actually contacted Stuart and said, would you guys fancy doing this on behalf of the club?
Wow.
Now, initially, our first thoughts were, do it on behalf of the club. The trouble with that is you've then got to kind of be a little bit kind of guarded in how you say things and what you say and so on, not effectively toe the party line, because the club have never put a stipulation on us that we have to toe the party line, as people will know from Tam as co-commentator. If Tam doesn't like something, he'll tell you he doesn't like it. But it's that kind of, you can't necessarily say exactly what you think. But then on the other hand, we thought, we turn this down, we're never going to get a chance like this again. So we decided to do it. It kind of evolved into what was then known as Hibernian Interactive, which then became Hibernian TV, which then became Hibs TV. We started off doing internet-based commentaries. It was then radio-based commentaries, and ultimately it then moved to sort of pictures and video-based commentaries and so on. I wasn't actually involved in the commentaries at the start. There was a guy called John Campbell that did the commentaries, and not long after that, I got a contact from a guy that I knew, a guy called Luke Shanley, who started off his career with Hibs TV doing the reserve games, commentary for the reserve games. And you look at Luke and see where he's got to now. He's probably Sky Sports' main man in Scotland, other than Ian Crocker, who does the commentaries. Luke is their head reporter, effectively. So, fair play to him for a young lad that started off at Hibs TV to be doing what he's doing now. And every time I see him, I think, guys, you've done all right for yourself, mate. And obviously I still keep in touch with Luke, see him regularly at the games and so on. And, he's done really well for himself. I got involved in it when John kind of left, and Luke had moved on to Sky TV, and Martin Glancy, who sadly is no longer with us now. Martin was the other commentator for Hibs TV.
Right.
Martin kind of didn't really do away games. So I kind of got involved. Martin was doing the home games, and I kind of started doing away games. First one being a friendly match against Dunfermline at East End Park. I think we won 4-0, probably sometime around about 2009.
Right.
I'd been doing the interviews for Hibs TV prior to that. basically on a Friday lunchtime. I would go down to Easter Road, pick any player that I wanted, sit down and have a chat with them for about an hour. What we did was we split it up into 5 sections. At the end of each section, we allowed the player to choose one of their favourite songs. So we'd ask a few questions, get them to introduce the song, blend all that in, edit it all together, and the whole thing lasted about an hour. And the players absolutely loved it because we weren't like mainstream media. You know, we weren't looking for any angles or anything like that to try and catch them out. We were just Hibs fans speaking to Hibs players, and they loved it. You know, guys like Derek Riordan, who would rarely speak to the media, loved speaking to us. Gary O'Connor was the same, you know, and it was brilliant. So I'd never had any aspirations to do commentary. Kind of got involved in it almost by accident. And then, you know, Martin unfortunately left us just before the Scottish Cup final in 2016. He'd been a bit ill prior to that and unwell, and I'd been kind of then taking over and doing sort of home games and the away games, and kind of just continued ever since. And as I say, so that was the background to it all. No ambitions, no aspirations to be involved in it. Got involved in it just initially as a bit of fun, then ended up kind of getting involved in it more than I had intended to, but we are now where we are. So, you know, I've got the job that, you know, in fairness, most Hibs supporters would give their right arm to do. I'm very, very privileged to have it. Certainly never take it for granted. Love doing what I do. And, you know, every game just try to do it to the best of my ability.
Yeah, definitely. And do you remember the first game you done at Easter Road on commentary?
I can't. I honestly can't remember the first game I did at Easter Road. I'd be lying if I said I could. It was probably a friendly that same season, you know, because Martin might have been on holiday or something like that, and I would have stepped in and done it. But I can't remember the first one at Easter Road. I definitely remember the first away one was at East End Park. That was a great place to go. They always looked after you well, made sure that you were catered for, your pies and bovrils and everything at half time. So you know, got to know the guys across there very well. We didn't really go for the pies. We went for the Stevens Bridies, obviously, than a pie. You know, Stevens Bridie and a bovril. Can't you beat that? No,
definitely. So, next question, Cliff, is how hard is it to put aside sort of your allegiances when you're commentating, especially in, you know, the bigger games where, you know, if we've been turned over by the other side of the city, how hard is that as a commentator to do that?
Initially, it was very difficult because obviously, you know, we are, myself, I'm a Hibs supporter, and Tam, although he didn't grow up a Hibs supporter, you know, I think you hear from Tam when he commentates on Hibs games that he has Hibs within his heart now. You know, he's the first team that he signed for, made his debut, scored his first goals in Scottish football, what have you. So still holds a massive, massive soft spot for Hibs. And, you know, like anybody else, that's a fan, you feel it when the team gets beat, you know, but you have to kind of be mindful, and certainly more so in recent seasons where the commentaries have been opened up to away fans.
Yes.
That, you know, you want to kind of have this element of bias, if you like, within it. And I think from our point of view, one of the things that we are quite proud of is when you look at other club websites and they're talking about commentaries on games, they are very complimentary about myself and Tam. They will say that, you know, you can tell these guys are Hibs supporters, but they also give praise to the opposition where it's merited, and they don't overdo the Hibsness of it. And for me, that I think is the balance that I have always kind of wanted to strike. I want everybody to know that we are Hibbies. There's no two ways about that. But we have to take, you know, at the end of the day, you listen to things, for example, I'll name obviously Rangers, Rangers TV, you know, and the commentators there, you know, it's almost like if the opposition score a goal, you'd be hard pushed to realise that the opposition scored the goal. There very rarely is any credit given to the opposition, no matter how well they play. Now, for me, if an opponent hits a shot from 25 yards that screams into the top corner, beats the goalkeeper, all ends up, come on, you've got to give them credit for it. You know, it's not like, oh, that was just a fluke, the boy sticking that in the touch. He's taken a touch on it, he's looked up, seen where the goalkeeper has planted it straight in the top corner. That was what he meant to do. So there's no fluke about it. You know, you've got to give credit where credit's due. And similarly, you know, if we're not playing well, we're not going to tell the fans we are, because people are either watching the game or listening to the game. They can see what's going on. So you can't dress it up to be something that it isn't. And if the opposition are playing well, again, you've got to credit them for, you can only play against the team that you're up against. And if the team that you're up against snuffs you out and they do it well, you've got to give them credit for it. That's what tactics and football is all about. And that's where it's good having Tam beside me. I was a goalkeeper of no repute as a player in my playing days. Tam obviously played at the top level in Scotland. He played down in England as well, out in the States for the Colorado Rapids and that. So, he knows his stuff, Tam, and it's good to have somebody like that beside you that can concentrate on the tactical issues of the game. And I just need to worry about where the ball is on the pitch and who's got it. So there's a good balance there between us. I've known Tam since he joined the club. He was one of the first players that I actually interviewed when I started doing the stuff way back in 2002. And he's actually still got a copy of the interview that we did on CD that I gave him. I gave all the players a copy on CD, and I kept a copy for myself and got the player to sign it. So I've got a box of CDs here with about 70 or so different interviews in it, ranging from players like Tam to Matty Jack, Tony Mowbray, Mark Venus, Stephen Fletcher, Derek Riordan, Gary O'Connor, all these guys that played for the club between about 2002, 2006, 2007. So, it's a nice wee souvenir to have, if nothing else.
Oh, definitely. And so, a question based on the person you've done co-coms with. Who's been your favourite person to do co-coms with over the years?
It's a difficult one because you don't want to upset anybody that's been co-coms. That they all have different attributes. The three main guys that I've worked with were obviously Guillaume Bouzelin. Unbelievably enthusiastic. This is guys that are sort of former players. Obviously, I've had guys like Keith Reid, that was a very, very good co-commentator. Dave Armstrong, who is our sort of deputy commentator, has done co-coms with me as well. Both very good and very knowledgeable at what they do. Boozy, unbelievably enthusiastic. He would just, for a French guy that came across here, probably knew nothing at all about Hibs, nothing about Leith, Edinburgh, whatever. Cut Boozy open, he bleeds green. He's just Hibs through and through now. Very enthusiastic, didn't really go much into the tactical side of it. Boozy was really your epitome of a fan doing co-coms, and just loved his enthusiasm. You almost didn't have to commentate on the game because Boozy would be screaming and yelling over you in the background anyway, Kevin Harper, very, very knowledgeable tactically. I think Kevin is one of these players that throughout his career, very underrated as a player. Didn't spend a lot of time with Hibs, but is obviously now back in a scouting capacity at Easter Road, which is great to see. But Kevin, very, very knowledgeable about the game. Ask him anything about tactics and he'll answer you like that, So he had that huge attribute. Probably not, how can I put this? He's not as good a talker as Tam.
Right.
Kevin, Boozy, you couldn't shut up. Kevin, you kind of had to bring in to the commentaries at times. And Tam, he just has a wee ability to know when to speak. If I'm kind of silent for a couple of seconds, Tam will jump in and he'll take over and sort of say something while I get myself organised back to where I'm kind of meant to be and what I'm doing and so on. And again, also very good tactically. Probably not as astute tactically as Kevin is,
right?
But still knows the game and can look at it and sort of say, well, if it was me that was doing it, I would have Kevin Nisbet doesn't play up front as a lone striker, stick somebody up front alongside him. Why have you got Josh Doig playing left back and Lewis Stevenson playing just in front of him? Swap them around, play Josh going forward and sit Lewis in behind them. Just all these wee things that most people can see anyway as fans. But, Tam brings it to the front, points it out. So they all have their own strengths, they all have their own weaknesses, but they've all been absolutely brilliant guys to work alongside. And I've loved every minute of being able to do it.
That's good. It's good to hear that they've all been good to commentate with. So this is more of a general question Do you have a favourite season that you've commentated on?
For obvious reasons, you'd probably have to say 2015, 2016. Not just for the fact, obviously, we won the Scottish Cup, which was massive.
Yeah.
And I was the privileged position to be the first, and who knows, maybe the last Hibs TV commentator to utter the words Hibernian have won the Scottish Cup. But that whole season, we played some terrific football.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we lost out to Ross County in the League Cup final. And you think about it, as a championship side as we were, we could have won both the cups.
Yeah.
And probably should have won both the cups. I thought in the game against Ross County at Hampden, I thought Hibs were by far the better side. If the game had gone to extra time, I think we probably would have gone on and won it. But unfortunately, Ross County just got the goal late on. Liam Fontaine, I know I still speak to Liam about it, and it's a measure of the class of Liam Fontaine and how he got Hibs, that he was so cut up about what happened in the League Cup final that he went on Twitter later on and he apologised to the Hibs fans for the mistake and promised them that he would make up for it. And boy, did he do so, along with the other guys that were on the pitch on the 21st of May, 2016. They delivered the big one rather than the Diddy one, as people would call it, Listen, if we'd won both the trophies, it would have been fantastic. If we managed to get promoted as well, what a season it would have been. But, just for the way it all panned out, having lost the League Cup, having then lost out in the playoffs to Falkirk in the manner that we did, the team could have gone into the Scottish Cup final and just been taken apart by Rangers. It's been such a downer, to have got to the League Cup final and lost it when they probably should have won it. Got to the playoffs against Falkirk, probably should have won it, lost it. Who'd have blamed them if they'd fallen apart in the cup final? But that team deserved to win something that season, and they got the rewards by winning the big one. And listen, every one of them goes down as a legend in Leith. They'll never need to buy a drink in a pub in Leith again. And, whatever people say about Alan Stubbs, obviously he moved on the following season, but the following season was pretty damn good as well, because Neil Lennon came in and changed things around a wee bit, and we got promoted back to the Premiership, and then the first season back in the Premiership was a cracking season as well. So it's tough to pick between them. There've been great points in all the seasons, but I think 2015, 2016, simply because at the end of it, we got that huge monkey off our backs by winning the Scottish Cup. You're going to be hard pushed to beat that. We said that at the time, if we win the Scottish Cup again, it will be fantastic. It's never, ever going to be like that day in May 2016. No football fan in Scotland will ever be able to experience what the Hibs fans experienced that day unless Dundee win the Scottish Cup.
Yeah.
Because they've obviously not won it since 2010, since 1910. They're now 112 years, and they're kind of pushing on for the same level. So for them to win the Scottish Cup will be similar to when we won it. No other team's going to have that. You just can't describe it. What's it like? You haven't won the cup for 114 years, and then you win it. You win it again, great. Be a great day. We'll all have fun. We'll all celebrate it. But it's never going to be like that day.
No, definitely. I've got a few questions, Cliff, about sort of the Edinburgh derbies that you've done. So, do you remember your first Edinburgh derby you commentated on?
I'm pretty sure the first one I did would have been at Tynecastle. I honestly can't remember which one it was. I say I'm not one for kind of taking notes on games that I've done. If it was one that immediately jumped out to me, I would remember it.
Yeah.
You remember the sort of bigger games. The game at Tynecastle, obviously. Martin Boyle scored twice. Yeah. The game where we beat them 2-1. Darryl Horgan scored twice. The games at Easter Road where we beat them to get to the game at Tynecastle, obviously the 2-2 draw when we were 2-0 down with 10 minutes to go. Hearts got their money spinning replay. We went on and won the trophy. You remember those ones. So it would have been a game at Tynecastle, and it was either a nondescript draw or we'd have lost. I can't remember for the life of me which actual game it was. As I say, the ones that stand out are the ones that were either particularly good for some reason or, as we may cover later on, particularly bad for some reason.
Do you like commentating at Tynecastle, Cliff?
I hate the derbies. I hate derbies. There is just, I don't know what it is. There's just that I have this fear of derbies. I mean, I grew up watching Hibs and Eddie Turnbull's team.
Yep.
You know, we only played each other twice a season back then, and we went something like 8 years before Hearts scored a goal against us.
Yeah.
You know, my first derby at Tynecastle was the 7-0 game.
Oh, wow.
My dad and my uncle took me along. My dad's a Hibs supporter, obviously. My uncle was a Hearts supporter. And we kind of stood somewhere around the halfway line. That, you know, again, I was knee-high to a sprat and could hardly see a thing, you know. But the atmosphere was just unbelievable. And the fans used to swap sides at half-time when the teams changed ends, you know, and everybody kind of would walk past each other and all that. There was kind of a few pleasantries were exchanged and so on. But, you know, at that time, we were the dominant side in Edinburgh. And then things changed completely. My following game was also at Tynecastle, and we lost 4-1.
Right.
Eric Shadler scored an OG. A guy called Roddy McKenzie played in goals for us, who was, you know, if you'd cut both his arms off, he couldn't have been any worse than he was with two hands. So, you know, I don't think he played very many games for Hibs after that. And things started to change a little bit, and Hearts got the upper hand in it. You know, it's one of these games that, because there is so much riding on it, and ultimately, when you think about it realistically, 9 times out of 10, it's 3 points, like any other game. But it's because it's them. Yeah. There's the fear of losing, you know, and that you've got to put up with the banter from your mates that are Hearts supporters, if you have some mates that are Hearts. I'm unfortunate enough to have a few that are Jambos, and you've got to put up with the ribbon that you get from them, and you know what's coming, and you think, phone in sick on Monday, you know, then they get you on Tuesday or Wednesday, or they get you the following week, you know, they're not going to miss you, you know. So I'm not a massive fan of the derbies. They are very, very fraught to commentate on. Tynecastle is great when you win. Not so great when you lose. Obviously, we were either commentating from the main stand or, in the last couple of seasons, from the Wheatfield stand, which is just, you know, completely full of Hearts supporters in front of us. The last one was quite amusing. Tam actually was a little bit late getting to the ground, and I saw him walking up the stairs, and the stand was probably about half full at that point in time with Hearts supporters. And I saw Tam at the bottom of the stairs. He had a baseball cap on, and he pulled the baseball cap down so the peak was kind of just over his eyes, and he had his mask on, obviously, for the COVID restrictions that were still in place. And he walked up the stairs looking like a bank robber. And I thought, this is great. This is where I can walk in and nobody really recognises me or knows who I am. You know, I could be, you know, anybody. But Tam McManus walking up the stairs at Tynecastle, all it takes is one person to recognise him, and all of a sudden his life's not worth living, you know. So he's kind of got to disguise himself when he goes to Tynecastle, whereby I can get away with just turning up like an ordinary dude sort of style. But I'm not a massive fan of the derby, simply because, although in most cases it is only 3 points, we all know it's more than that. It's 3 points plus the bragging rights, plus the grief you've got to take if you lose. And as I say, when you're two Hibs supporters stuck in a stand full of Hearts supporters, particularly if they've won, it's choking you.
Yeah, definitely. What's it like when we score at Tynecastle and you're commentating? Obviously, the games that come to mind are, you know, obviously the 2-2 when Hanlon scored, Horgan's double, Ross Caldwell's winner, Boyle's 2. What are they like when we score and you're obviously lead commentating in the home end? That must be pretty crazy.
You've got to remember where you are. Tynecastle and Ibrox are the two places really where you've got to remember where you are. Celtic Park, if Hibs score, you can go as mad as you like. You know, you get away with it. Any other stadium that you're in, you know, you go as mad as you like, you get away with it. Normally, we do commentate from one of the stands that's full of away supporters. But for Hearts and Rangers, there just seems to be this extra element built into it. So, you know, we'll be enthusiastic, but slightly more toned down than we might be in other stadiums, for obvious reasons. You know, particularly, as I say, if Tam is with me, you know, you need to watch what's happening, because all it takes is one idiot. And we saw it at Hampden in the 2016 Cup final. You know, what can happen when Rangers lost that day. You know, similarly with Hearts, just all it takes is one idiot. And in fairness, most of the fans are absolutely fine. You know, they'll look round, they'll maybe look at you, they'll maybe give you a middle finger or flash the two fingers at you kind of style or whatever. But all it takes is one of them that's, you know, been drinking on an empty head, for want of a better way of putting it, and it just kicks off, and it's not worth it. That said, the worst one we ever had was some idiot at McDermott Park that had been in hospitality, and he came out for the second half absolutely steaming, and obviously we were right behind them, commentating on the game. And there was an incident in the game. Lee Griffiths was playing for Hibs at the time, and St Johnstone had got a free kick, and it wasn't a free kick, it was a drop ball, and the referee dropped the ball. I think it was Dave Mackay was playing for St Johnstone at the time. He rolled the ball back to the goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper then rolled it straight back to Dave Mackay, and Lee Griffiths then went to challenge him, because obviously at that point in time the ball was live. And Lee Griffiths actually challenged them. Hibs won a corner from it and ended up scoring the winner from the corner. And this guy in front, we were absolutely ecstatic that Hibs had scored the winner in the last couple of minutes. And this guy was wanting to turn around and absolutely kill us. And Andrew Slight, who was the media manager at the time, came across and said to the guy, you know, look, calm yourself down, mate. These guys are doing commentary and all that kind of stuff. And he was, I come here every effing week and this and that, you know. You come across, who do you think you are? That's ridiculous. The referee should have obviously didn't know the rules or anything like that. And he ended up getting huckled out by his own security people, because he was just, you know, creating a complete fool of himself, you know. And I was a bit disappointed, because I was wanting to have a wee word with him at full time and say, look, mate, you know, we're here doing a commentary for Hibs TV. I'm not doing this commentary for the benefit of you or any other St Johnstone supporters at the time. It was only going out on Hibs TV to Hibs supporters. This was pre-COVID and all that sort of stuff, you know. But he got huckled out, and I never got the chance to speak to him. And unfortunately, I've never seen him again since we've been up at McDermott Park. So never ever got the chance to just have a wee word with him. But you know, as I say, he was actually baying for blood. And I subsequently heard afterwards that a few weeks later, Rangers were up there, and he actually swung a punch at one of the Rangers commentators, and that's probably why he's never been seen at McDermott Park again. So
that's probably
whether there was any truth in that story or not, I don't know, but who knows. But I say, all it takes is one dafty, and it just all gets silly. So you have to be mindful of where you are, mindful of the atmosphere, mindful of what's going on. You know, if you're getting beat 2-0 and you score one late on, you can maybe be a bit more enthusiastic. Your team's maybe got a chance of getting back in the game. If you're 2-0 up, you score a third one to really rub their noses into it. You just got to watch how you kind of go with it. But again, as Hibs fans, either way, Hibs score against Hearts, we're absolutely churning inside. You know, it's, as I say, that's where it's difficult to kind of keep a lid on it, but you have to.
No, definitely. And do you have a favourite derby you've commentated on? That could be home or away.
The two in the cup winning season were both great, you know, for different reasons, you know. And the game at Tynecastle, 2-0 down, 10 minutes to go, looking dead and buried. Jason Cummings scores with about 8 minutes or so left, and for Paul Hanlon to equalise in stoppage time, you know, was just unbelievable. You know, the atmosphere that day, again, Hibs supporters behind the goal, sort of the Roseburn end were just unbelievable. They got right behind the team, even at 2-0 down. And I didn't think Hibs deserved to be 2-0 down at half time. You know, they contributed well. And I thought, you know, if we can score early on in the second half, get it back to 2-1, you know, this game's still in the balance. But you're kind of 7-8 minutes to go and you're still 2-0 down. And obviously the legend that is Peter Martin had made the comment on Twitter about, you know, that's Hibs Scottish Cup dreams dead and buried for another season. And that didn't age very well as but, you know, and then the replay at Easter Road, you know, I thought we were terrific that night. And again, the fans inside the stadium that night were like an extra man. And, you know, we won the game deservedly, and then went on to do what we did, you know, and in the process probably ripped up the entire Hearts supporters songbook, you know, because all they had was songs about 100 however many years in a row, and you know, so there you go. But so they would probably be the best two. The ones that we won at Tynecastle are always good ones to commentate on. The two goals that Martin Boyle scored, we beat them 2-0 that day. Darrell Horgan, as you mentioned there, you know, they were both great games. Again, you know, the Hibs fans, when Hibs are on top in these games at Tynecastle, are just brilliant. And, you know, where we're sitting, being able to watch the Hibs fans celebrate is great. Obviously, you'd love to be in amongst them, but if you can't be in amongst them, to watch them behind the goals, giving it large to the heart support is just priceless. You know, it's all you can do not to be sitting there with a huge big smile on your face. You know?
Absolutely.
But again, with McManus beside me, it's kind of difficult.
Aye.
The mark man.
Aye. Well, Cliff, let's talk about the day itself, the 21st of May, 2016. Obviously, you are, as you said, the only man in history to ever say Hibs have won the Scottish Cup on a Hibs TV broadcast, which is pretty cool. So, what was your pre-game ritual on the day? What time did you sort of rock up to Hampden, etc.?
We were at Hampden about 10:30 in the morning, Charlie, and we were provided with a lovely breakfast of champions, as described it. Full Scottish breakfast provided by the SFE, which was lovely. Just get there early to make sure that everything's working. You know, for a game of that magnitude.
Oh yeah.
You know, you've got guys in the States, Australia, Canada, South Africa, all over the globe that couldn't make it back, that were relying on us for coverage of it. You know, so anything had gone wrong that day, it would have been hell to pay. So just make sure everything's working, get it all tested, get it all set up, and then kind of just sit there and soak in the atmosphere. I actually had a feeling on the day. I genuinely thought that this could be our day.
Yep.
You know, the reasons behind that were that Rangers hadn't played for quite some time, because obviously they'd been promoted automatically.
Yeah.
I know they played a couple of bounce games and so on, but it's not the same as playing competitive games. Hibs had played the competitive games right through, playing Falkirk in the playoffs and so on. And you know, I just thought, you know, this is going to be our day, because this team deserved to win something.
Yeah.
You know, if this team doesn't win today, it's going to be the biggest anticlimax of a football season ever.
Yeah.
Could have won the championship, or could have won the League Cup, didn't. Could have won the championship, didn't get through to the playoff. If we lose the Scottish Cup, you know, we'll all be on the verge of becoming jambos, you know. But I just had a wee feeling that could be our day, simply because I thought Rangers not played a lot of games, might not be quite as fit and quite as up to speed as we are, because we've been playing all the way through it. And that literally was how it turned out. You know, I think you got to the last sort of 10 minutes or so, we were 2-1 down, but we were absolutely all over Rangers. Rangers were, you know, on their last legs. And you kind of thought to yourself at that stage, if we can get an equaliser here, if this goes to extra time, we'll steamroller them in extra time, because they look dead on their feet.
Yep.
And when Stokes equalised, you know, with sort of 8 or 9 minutes to go, you're thinking to yourself, this could be it. This could be it. There's only one team looks like they're going to win this game. And we all know what happened in stoppage time. And, you know, at that point in time, 92 minutes on the clock. I think there was another 2 minutes after that. It was probably the longest 2 minutes of every Hibs supporter's life. It felt like 2 hours, you know. And we're kind of sitting up at the commentary position thinking, what do we do here? What do we do? What do we actually say? You know, no one's ever done this before. You know, and when the Hibs winning the Scottish Cup, unheard of. You know, what are we going to say? And when the full-time whistle went, you know, the first thing I shouted was, the full-time whistle's gone and Hibernian have won the Scottish Cup. Let me say that again. Hibernian have won the Scottish Cup. It's been 114 years, and now it's not even been 114 seconds. And, you know, I remember vividly what I said. I don't know where it came from, but, you know, that was it. And then kind of merry hell kicked off in the stands and on the pitch and all sort of style, you know, and we were kind of trying to talk through a fantastic victory and cover for people what was going on the pitch and all that sort of stuff. And meanwhile, we had the numpties behind us that were kind of a wee bit upset at the score, shall we say. One of them had obviously had far too much in hospitality. We had the Rangers hospitality supporters behind us.
Right.
And, you know, one of the guys hurled the match programme, which, as you know, is like a big book thing.
Oh, yeah.
For the Scottish Cup final, you know, it caught Keith's headphones right in the side of the headphones, took the headphones clean off his head halfway across the table, you know, and the steward eventually had to call the police, who came in and kind of escorted them out. And in fairness, one of the guys who was with him, he apologised. He said, look, he's had too much to drink, you know, apologies for his behaviour. You know, he'll regret that in the morning because he'd been huckled out by the police and what have you. And he said, you know, fair play, guys. You won the game fair and square. Enjoy your night and what have you. You know, so, you know, like every set of football supporters, there are sensible ones in amongst them, as well as the numpties. Unfortunately, we ended up with a numpty behind us, and Conor Rafferty, who was on co-coms with myself and Keith that day as well, the immortal cry of no danger when David Gray headed the winner. He had to spend his time, whilst Keith and I were discussing the game, the aftermath, what was happening on the pitch. He was trying to kind of speak to this guy behind and get him to calm the idiot down, you know, and no matter what the guy that was saying, that the guy was just having none of it. He was spoiling for a fight with somebody. Fortunately, didn't get it and ended up getting escorted out by Strathclyde's finest. And then obviously the presentation of the trophy and everything went ahead, and you know, we were literally right above it. I mean, I couldn't have got a better view of it if you'd asked for it, you know. And again, just to see the Hibs support, and then, you know, Sunshine on Leith was played out over the tannoy, and, you know, I thought to myself, sod this, I'm saying nothing here. I just said, right, Sunshine on Leith is about to be played out over the tannoy. Keith and I are just going to, you know, listen to this, and you guys can listen to it as well. And the entire Hibs support at Hampden singing Sunshine on Leith that day, unbelievable. You know, every hair on the back of my neck was standing up, and you saw how much it meant to the players down at the presentation area. They were singing along with it, and, you know, it was just, you know, you're never ever going to beat that day. No. You know, we were fortunate afterwards to be invited back to the post-match party at Easter Road as well, and we're amongst the first people to get our photos taken with the trophy as well, which was very nice, and obviously very kind of the club to invite us back to it. And you know, just an absolutely fantastic day. The following day, obviously, the parade, I just attended that as a punter with my wife. We were up the high street when the team bus came down from the city chambers, and Alan Stubbs on the bus actually saw me, and he kind of waved to me. He said, "What are you not?" I said, No. I said, "I'm just here as a fan." Ended up back down at Leith Links, and thereafter went back up to the stadium to interview a few of the guys after the parade. And, you know, guys like John McGinn, you know, Darren McGregor, obviously Hibs through and through, Marvin Bartley, who I'd actually spoken to prior to the final, and sort of said to him, you know, see, if you guys win this thing on Saturday, you know, you will not believe the magnitude of what will happen thereafter. And, you know, the first thing he said to me, I said to him, "So Marv," I said, "that parade, what about it?" He said, "Mate," he said, "you said to me that it would be something else. That was something else to the power of 10. He said, "You know, I will never, as a football player, experience anything like that ever again in my career." I had no idea how big that was going to be. You know, from the city chambers right down the high street, along the bridges, down Leith Walk, back up Easter Road. You know, he said, down to Leith Links, it was just, you know, there was no space anywhere. The amount of fans, the amount of green and white, you know, I know you said it was going to be something else, but I thought, you know, be a few fans out giving us a wee cheer here and there. No idea, Big Marv, how big it was going to be. Liam Fontaine was exactly the same. You know, just had no idea how big that victory parade was going to be. And, you know how much we enjoyed it. You know, as professional football players, what a memory that is for these guys to take away from their career. You know, Scottish Cup winners medal, and the videos and all that of, you know, being on the bus going through all those fans, and, you know, unbelievable. You know, just, as I say, you're never going to surpass that. Like I say, if we win it again, yeah, it'll be a great day. We'll all celebrate it. But, you know, the magnitude of what we'd actually done to win it for the first time in 114 years. Nobody knew what to do. You know, full-time whistle went at Hampden. What do we do? We've won the Scottish Cup. Jesus Christ, you know, nobody's ever said Hibs have won the Scottish. Nobody that's living has ever said Hibs have won the Scottish Cup before, you know. And we've got 25,000 Hibs fans at Hampden all. Have we actually won the Scottish Cup? you know, and unbelievable. What a day. What a day. What a weekend.
Oh, what a weekend.
Week.
Aye. Best weekend day of my life. And
absolutely.
Top class.
It went on for a wee bit longer than the weekend as well.
It did indeed. So obviously we've spoken about the highs, Cliff. So let's sort of talk about the past couple of seasons. Obviously, COVID hasn't been great for everyone, but as a football commentator, how did you find COVID?
Horrible. It was, you know, that's when you realise, Charlie, how much the fans mean to the game. You know, to go into a stadium and try to commentate on a game, and there's no crowd there. Yeah. You know, you can literally hear every word that the coaches are saying in the dugouts. You can hear every word that the players are shouting at each other. You know, there's a few media people in. There's obviously the medical people, the ambulance people, and all that kind of stuff. You know, and it just was the most surreal season ever. You know, and again, from my point of view, you know, to be able to kind of say that you've done something like that is quite incredible, you know. Yeah. But I would never want to do it again.
No.
You know, to have no fans in the stadium is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
A lot of the games, you know, that particular season, you know, and I'm sure most Hibs supporters would echo it, you know, we played some good football and obviously finished third. But a lot of the games that we played, there was just this kind of feeling of a safety first attitude to them.
Yeah.
You know, and there wasn't a lot to get excited about.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I know people were watching it and we were commentating on it, and I'd read comments on social media and kind of saying, I wish the commentators would make this game sound a bit more exciting. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, I wish the players would actually make the game a bit more exciting, because if they make it a bit more exciting, we can make it a bit more exciting. How do you actually make a game sound exciting if it isn't exciting? You know, that's the $1 million question. If anybody wants to answer that one for me, then I'm all ears. You know, I mean, if the game is a dull, dreary, poor game, there's not very much a commentator can do to liven it up.
No.
You know, you're looking for some spark on the pitch to liven it up. And, you know, there were some games that season where we were absolutely fantastic. We played some sparkling football, scored a good number of goals. There were other games where we just kind of looked like we were going through the motions at times, or if we went 1-0 up, we sat back on it rather than try and build on it. You know, it was just a real weird season. You know, over the piece, we did well to finish third. You know, we qualified for Europe as a result of it, which was great. But, you know, it illustrated for me that you need fans at the stadium. Yeah. You need fans. The fans give it the atmosphere. The players feed off the fans in that atmosphere. And that's what makes them tick on the park. You know, must have been difficult for the players as well at times, because I'm sure a lot of the games were just like playing bounce games or playing training games, you know, with no fans in the stadium to kind of G up, you know, it was difficult. But, you know, we did it. We got through it. We finished third. We qualified for Europe. I wouldn't ever want to do it again.
No. And what, on the flip of that, what was it like this season, obviously, being a full season without fans? How's it been having fans back? I can imagine it makes your job a lot easier.
It was great. You know, it was terrific having the fans back in the stadium. You know, everybody feeds off that atmosphere, Charlie. You know, and whether the fans are, you know, cheering for the team or getting on their case, they're there. That's football. You know, if the team's playing well, the fans get behind them. If the team aren't playing well, the fans will get on their case and let them know about it. You know, Tam does it from the commentary position, so you know why fans wouldn't do it from the stands is, you know, no different.
Yeah.
But you know, I think it was a strange kind of season, wasn't it? You know, I mean, we started off very, very well, and then, you know, the wheels just seemed to come off a wee bit. You know, after we trounced Rangers in the League Cup semi-final, and were outstanding that day. You know, but thereafter things just seemed to tail off. That said, you know, I thought we held Celtic. Now, I wouldn't say we kind of gave Celtic a game, because I thought the first half, you know, against Celtic, you know, Celtic were all over us. They got the opening goal, and then we got back in. Sorry, we got the opening goal, but rather than, you know, build on it, we kind of conceded a silly goal just a few minutes after we'd gone ahead. If we'd held the lead for maybe 10 minutes or so, who knows how that game might have turned out. You know, Celtic were certainly, for me, the better side on the day, but the better side always doesn't always win cup finals.
No, definitely not.
You've seen that in many, many cup finals. But after that, it just seemed to all go downhill a wee bit. And obviously it culminated with Jack Ross being replaced by Sean Maloney. And Sean Maloney came in his first couple of games, Aberdeen and Dundee United, we won both the games and we actually looked pretty reasonable doing so. And I think people were thinking, oh, this looks like things could go quite well. But then all of a sudden, again, we had that enforced break. I think it was for international weekends and what have you. And we came back from that and just went into that same sort of rut that we couldn't buy a win to save ourselves. And obviously people were getting on Sean Maloney's case. They were getting on the team's case. I think if you're being realistic, looking at it now in the cold light of day, we'd lost Martin Boyle, who was obviously our talisman. You're offered £3 million for a player. Unfortunately, a club like Hibs can't turn that down. We lost a few other players. Obviously, Kevin Nisbet, we lost through injury. We lost Kyle McGuinness through injury. You look at the injury list that we had. It was almost a full first team in itself, and we were literally down to the bare bones.
Yes.
And the guys that were playing were I'm sure they were going out there and giving of their best, but it just wasn't working.
No.
And I think Sean Maloney was very, very keen to stick to this rigid plan that he had, and football is the kind of game, and Tam would tell you this, there are certain ways of playing football. And if you have the players to play a certain style, that's fine.
Yeah.
If not, don't try and play a style of football that the players that you have aren't used to playing. Play a style of football that suits the players that you have. And when you're in the transfer market, the window and all that, bring in players that can play the style that you want to play.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to adapt a little bit. And Sean, for me, I just thought was, too rigid in his sort of style. He wanted to play the same way all the time. He wanted to play a sort of passing game where you kept possession, and it was evident that we were making loads of passes, 400, 450 passes a game.
Yeah.
But it was also evident that probably 3/4 of them were being made in the first 3/4 of the pitch.
Yep.
And very few of them were being made in the attacking end or the opposition's defensive zone. And that was the problem. We didn't have anybody in the side that could find that killer pass and create the chance. And when we did create chances, we didn't take them.
Yep.
And that was what killed us, and it just kind of went down and down and down. And obviously Sean was then removed from his position as well. Unusual to see two Hibs managers lose their job in the same season. But David Gray then came in, took over as a caretaker as he'd done before. And with David Gray, you know what you're going to get. He's Sir David Gray. I should be referring to him, giving his proper title. And it's one of these ones that I kind of think. A lot of people were sort of saying, David Gray for the manager's job and so on, and you're thinking to yourself, look, David Gray is a Hibs legend. You've seen guys like Mixu Patalainen and that, John Hughes come in, who were all very highly thought of as Frank Sosie, all very highly thought of as players, come in, do the manager's job. It doesn't work out for them. They end up either mutually consented or sacked. And it kind of taints their reputation for me a little bit. It impinges on their status. And for David Gray, the last thing you would want is for David Gray to lose his knighthood and be downgraded to an OBE or something like that. David Gray OBE rather than Sir David Gray. And we all remember David Gray for what he did.
Yeah.
I have a funny feeling that at some point in the future, David Gray will be a future Hibs manager. When that will be, I don't know. I have a kind of similar feeling about Scott Brown, that Scott Brown might at some point in the future be a future Hibs manager. But who knows? David Gray took over as caretaker, and then Lee Johnson obviously has been appointed. And certainly from what I've seen and heard of Lee Johnson, he seems to know what he wants to do with the side.
Yep.
The way that he wants to play the game is certainly in line with how the Hibs supporters would want to see the game played.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, as everybody knows, it's easy to talk about how you want to play the game. The proof of the pudding is getting your team to actually do it.
Yeah.
But in saying that, his record down in England is decent. I know a few Sunderland supporters that were quite upset when he was replaced. Felt that if he'd stayed, they probably would have got into the playoffs that season. Phil Parkinson came in and they missed the playoffs. But it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. He did play up here. I know he's got that sort of slight taint on his background, but I think he only played something like 4 or 5 games for Hearts. The bulk of his career as a player in Scotland was at Kilmarnock.
Yeah.
And he actually ended up won a League Cup winners' medal with Kilmarnock.
He did. Set the winning goal up as well.
That's right. Aye. So, you know, I mean, he's got a bit of knowledge about Scottish football. He is kind of half Scottish himself, which I didn't know at the time, but obviously from his interview we found that out. So, you know, I'm sure he's one of these guys that will want to come up here, and having played in Scottish football, he knows a bit about what it's like. You kind of felt that the guys, like, no disrespect to Paul Heckingbottom. Paul Heckingbottom came up here, and I think having managed at sort of a level down south where he'd been Leeds United manager, for example, a big club like that, maybe came up here and thought Scottish football would be a bit of a breeze, and it didn't turn out that way, you know, and ultimately things started going wrong for him. Hibs were kind of right down at the bottom of the table, I think they were second bottom at the time, and he lost his job, you know. So Lee Johnson coming in will have a bit of an idea about Scottish football. He did get the opportunity to watch Hibs against both Dundee and Livingston incognito.
And still decided to take the job. Hats off to him.
That's it, yeah. So, you know, I mean, he obviously feels that he can make us a better team.
Yeah.
And, you know, we all hope that that's the case. Having heard what he's got to say, I'm pretty confident that we can go on and have a good season next season. You look at some of the bodies that he's bought. And David Marshall, you know, whether that was his idea or not, he had to sign that one off. I was obviously quite happy to bring David Marshall in, you know, an experienced, established goalkeeper, a Scottish internationalist, a former Scottish internationalist.
Yeah.
You know, we've signed the guy, Nona Kenny from Leeds United, who seemed to be very highly rated down there as well. You know, Mr. Bojangles, as we're calling him. We've seen some of the goals that he scored. Hopefully he can replicate that at Hibs.
Yeah.
The young Australian lad that we've brought in, I've spoken to a few guys, you know, in Australia, a few of the Aussie Hibs guys, and they are very surprised that he isn't in the full Australian squad.
Yeah.
But obviously they're playing in an under-23 tournament at the moment, and he's involved with that. But they certainly seem to think that, you know, he's a real good prospect. So, you know, hopefully these guys come to fruition. I think we still need a couple of experienced heads to come in as well. You know, I'm quite happy to bring in young lads that are keen, that are hungry, that are enthusiastic, but you need a little bit of experience there to guide them as well. You've got the goalkeeper. If you can get an experienced central defender, an experienced central midfielder, and an experienced striker right up that spine of the side to help some of the young lads out, I think we could have a right good season next season.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Cliff, we've got some questions from some of our listeners, as well as Calvin and Jack, who couldn't make it. So Calvin asks, if you could commentate on any football game ever, which one?
It would be Scotland beating England in the World Cup final.
Aye, that's definitely fair.
But that's just a pipe dream.
It might happen, hopefully.
You never know.
And Jack, other member of the podcast, asked, the most emotional game you've ever commentated on, except the obvious.
You know, funnily enough, I would probably say the semi-final that season against Dundee United, Conrad Logan.
Oh.
You know, I mean, we all went along to that game and we saw Conrad running out the team, and we thought, what the game? You know, I mean, he'd been out injured for about 18 months or something like that. You know, he would tell you himself he was probably a stone and a bit overweight.
Yeah.
You know, but what a performance.
Oh,
you know,
aye.
You know, the penalty shootout as well. And just the fact that the way that played out, you know, obviously Conrad with his saves, but who scored the winning penalty? The guy that had made the complete mess of the Panenka during the game. You know, and I remember the Dundee United goalkeeper, the Japanese goalkeeper, I forget his name. But, you know, when Jason Cummings went up to take that penalty in the shootout, you could see the Dundee United goalkeeper standing there thinking, what is he going to do here? Surely he's not going to try that again. And knowing Jason, he might well have done that again.
Yeah.
But the Dundee United goalkeeper had no idea what he was going to do. Jason steps up, sticks it right in the bottom left-hand corner. The United keeper's just standing on his line, watched the ball hit the net. Didn't even move for it, you know. And for Jason Cummings to have scored the penalty that put us into the cup final, having made such a mess of the one that he took in normal time, and the Conrad Logan story, that was a very, very close second to the cup final. So probably that one would be right up there. Any others? Yeah, I mean, the League Cup final against Celtic was a tough one. Having gone 1-0 up against the run of play.
Yeah,
you're kind of thinking to yourself, God, I believe we're 1-0 up here. We've hardly been in this game, but we've kept Celtic out. In fairness, we'd restricted Celtic to mainly long-range shots.
Yeah.
We hadn't had a shot at goal ourselves. We score with our first effort at goal, and you think if we can hold on to this, we might win this game. But it wasn't to be, and to lose that one was a bit of a choker. So, that was another one. But,
oh, definitely. Next question comes from Jeff Ashton on Twitter, and he asks, who's your favourite football player ever?
My favourite football player ever would be Pat Stanton.
Pat Stanton.
We've answered that one previously, but loved watching guys like George Best at Hibs.
Yeah.
Obviously, Sosie and Latipi were just incredible footballers as well. But, for me, Pat Stanton is everything that Hibs are.
Aye. And this next one, you can be diplomatic if you want, but Jeff also asks, what's your favourite Hibs podcast?
I'll be honest with you, Charlie. I listened to most of the podcasts, obviously yourselves, the Down the Slope guys, Long Bangers, and I like them all because they're all different. Every podcast does things differently, and that for me is good because variety is the spice of life. If everybody was exactly the same and doing the same things, it would just be boring. So nobody copies anybody else. Each podcast does its own thing and does it differently. And, I enjoy listening to them all. And I think the podcasts are great. It's been a breath of fresh air because prior to that, you've had obviously the club's media situation, which is as it is. The club will report what it has to report, but it does it in a kind of, professional manner.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you guys aren't professional in the way that you do things because the podcasts are all very well done and very professionally put together. But there's a bit of lightheartedness and a bit of banter and everything goes into it and a bit of fun and a bit of poking fun at yourselves as well, more than anything else. And that's a great thing to be able to do. So it'd be a difficult one to choose. I enjoy them all. I think they're all different and I think they've all been a breath of fresh air for the Hibs family.
No, that's appreciated. And another question from Jeff. Actually, they're all from Jeff. He says, what's the worst game you've watched involving Hibs? It's probably an obvious one, but...
Aye, the European game where we got stuffed 7-0 by Malmo at Easter Road, that was a horrible, horrible night. And, I did that one with Martin Glancy. And, I think at 5, we kind of thought, this is going to be all right. We'd played Malmo in the Fairs Cup many, many moons ago, back in 1970-71, and beat them 6-0 at Easter Road. And the newspapers were concentrating on that, and you just thought to yourself that night that Malmo were a team on a mission.
Yes.
We lost 6-0 here back in 1971. We're going to make sure that you guys suffer for that tonight.
Yeah.
And, I remember at 5-0, I said to Martin, and that's another great, and Malmo played superbly.
Aye.
They were outstanding, and they had a couple of guys up front that were just like whippets, and we couldn't cope with their pace and their movement. But when it went to 5, I said to Martin, Martin, say something because I'm just lost for words here. And just nothing came back from Martin. Not a word came back from him. I kind of then said, well, clearly Martin's lost for words as well. All we can do is give Malmo credit. They've been absolutely superb tonight. They've played us off the park. And that was at 5-0. And, when it got to 7, I think they then took the foot off the gas a little bit. They'd done what they needed to do. They'd avenged the 6-0 defeat from way back in 1971 by beating us 7-0. And, that was just a horrible night. Game couldn't finish quickly enough.
No, definitely.
Horrible.
Aye, definitely. And Jeff also asks, what's your prediction for next season?
Well, as I said there, I think, from listening to Lee Johnson, I think he's very clear in what he wants to do. I think he's very clear in the style of football that he wants to play. From Sunderland fans that I've spoken to, his style of football is that he'll have his team set up to attack.
Yeah.
They don't always defend particularly well, but, that's what Hibs have been about. At the end of the day, I'd far rather go along to Easter Road and see Hibs win games 5-3 or 6-4 or something like that than hang on for 1-0 wins.
Yeah.
Or, end up drawing 1-1 because we're hanging on at 1-0 and we chuck a daft one in late on in the game, So, for me, if the football's entertaining, that's half the battle.
Yeah.
The issue that Hibs had last season with not being able to win games was that nobody really cared about the style of football. All we wanted to do was win a game or two.
Yeah.
If you're winning games, then you can start worrying about how you win them. The most important thing is to get Hibs winning games again. Yep. And then he can concentrate on the style and the way in which we win games. But I think he set his stall out very clearly to say that we will play attacking football and keep our opponents on the back foot. Mm-hmm. We might lose goals as a result of it by getting caught on the break or whatever. But listen, if the football's entertaining, that's half the battle for Hibs fans. You can take getting beat if the team's gone out there and played their hearts out and tried to win the game. When they're capitulating to defeat, that's more difficult to take.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed, what Lee Johnson says he's going to do is exactly what he does, and we can have a good season again.
Absolutely. And last question, what's your tipple during a match?
Tea. Cup of tea. Either a tea or a bovril. I like a cup of tea at half time. I generally say at half time, that's the half time whistle gone. Tam and I are going to go and grab a cup of tea. Do the same yourself, or grab something a bit stronger if you feel the need. And certainly last season as a Hibs supporter, I'm sure a few people are going off and pouring themselves a stiff whiskey or something at half time. But, I like a wee cup of tea at half time. If there's not a cup of tea on the go, I'd take a bovril. But a cup of tea and a wee sort of digestive biscuit or something like that is always nice at half time.
Perfect. Well, that sort of brings us to a close, Cliff. So thanks again for taking the time out your Friday night to chat to me.
No problem. I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
No, of course. And we'll be back podcast on Monday to look ahead to the new season, I think. So until next time, come on the Hibs.